On my wedding day, my name, Danica Lel, echoed through a chapel filled with guests. But as I turned to walk down the aisle, a cold, suffocating silence met me. 3 entire rows on the left side sat untouched. No mother's tearful smile. No brother's rowdy cheering. Just absence. I thought abandonment was the worst thing my family could do to me. I thought the sting of those empty chairs was the peak of their cruelty. I was wrong. My father didn't just skip my wedding to hurt my feelings. He showed up later with the police to destroy my life. He wanted me in handcuffs while I was still wearing my white dress. But what he didn't realize: when you try to burn someone alive, you'd better make sure they don't know how to handle the fire. And as a FEMA first responder, I was born in the flames. If you've ever been the black sheep of the family, the one who worked hard while everyone else took shortcuts, this story is for you. Today, we're diving into a tale of betrayal, identity theft, and a revenge so clinical it dismantled a lifetime of lies. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into the story of how I took my life back. The Stone Ridge Chapel was beautiful, but to me, it felt like a tomb. The air smelled of pine and expensive candles, but all I could feel was the draft hitting my bare shoulders. Evan, my husband-to-be, squeezed my hand. His palm was warm, steady, a stark contrast to the ice in my veins. I overheard a guest whisper, "Did nobody come for the bride?" It sliced through me. I kept my spine straight, a habit from years of training, but inside, a bruise was forming. I had sent the invitations. I had even tucked handwritten notes inside, pleading for a fresh start. A week later, they came back. Unopened. Stamped with a scarlet, returned to sender, like a bloodstain. Why? To understand the silence at the wedding, you have to understand the fire 4 years ago. I grew up in Boulder, the daughter of a legendary firefighter. My father, Silas, lived for the adrenaline. He had this old battered ambulance in the shed, a relic from his early days. He treated it like a holy shrine. 4 years ago, a brush fire swept through our hills. The wind was screaming, throwing embers like jagged glass. My father shouted at me, "Danica, save the ambulance. Get it out of the shed." I headed for the shed, but then I heard it. A high, thin scream from the neighbor's cabin. A child. In that moment, I didn't see a vintage vehicle. I saw a life. I ignored my father's roars and ran into the smoke. I pulled a 6-year-old boy out just as his roof turned into a furnace. When I emerged, gasping and covered in soot, I looked for my father's pride. Instead, I found his hatred. The shed had collapsed. The ambulance was a skeleton of melted chrome. "You chose a stranger over your own blood," he told my brothers, Mark and Luke. He didn't care about the boy I saved. He cared about the metal he lost. Later I found out why. He was drowning in debt, and that ambulance was the collateral for a loan he desperately needed. To him, I hadn't saved a life. I had bankrupted the family. Fast forward to the months leading up to the wedding. I thought the return to sender letters were just petty. I didn't realize they were a distraction. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Evan brought in a thick, court-mandated envelope. The word "suspect" was printed next to my name. The charge: misappropriating family savings. My father was accusing me of stealing $60,000 from my deceased mother's estate. Money I didn't even know existed. I looked at the signature on the complaint. It was my father's name, but the handwriting, it was too smooth. My father's hands have a tremor from years of labor. This script had the arrogant loopy L of my brother, Mark. I felt the walls closing in. They weren't just staying away from my wedding, they were building a cage for me. The wedding passed in a blur of grief. But the real climax happened the Monday after. 7:15 a.m. A heavy, rhythmic pounding on my door. I opened it to find my father standing between 2 Jefferson County officers. Snow was melting off his shoulders, and his eyes were as cold as the Denver winter. "That's her," he said, his voice flat. "That's the girl who broke into my house and cleared out the safe." He handed the officers a security video. It was grainy, showing a hooded figure in a dark parka moving through his backyard. She knows the codes, he told them. She thinks because she works for FEMA, she's above the law. I felt the blood drain from my face. The figure in the video did look like me. Same height, same build. But I'm a woman of data. I'm a woman of logs. Officers, I said, my voice trembling but certain. I have my FEMA GPS logs. I was on a floodwatch rotation 100 miles away in Fort Collins that entire night. My phone, my truck, and my supervisor can all verify my location. One officer frowned, looking at the logs on my laptop. Then he looked at the evidence again. Mr. Lel, the shoe prints in the mud in this video. They look like a size 11 or 12 boot. Your daughter is, what, a size 7? My father stammered. She could have worn bigger shoes to throw us off. The officer looked at the metadata of the video. This file was sent to you by your son, Mark. And it's been edited. The timestamp is forged. My father couldn't look at me. He looked at the snow on his boots. In that moment, I realized the truth. Mark and Luke had spent the money. They had used our mother's identity to take out loans. And when the debt collectors came calling, they needed a fall guy. They chose me. Music shifts, from tense and atmospheric to driving and triumphant. I didn't just want to be cleared. I wanted the truth to burn as bright as that fire 4 years ago. At the formal hearing, I didn't come alone. I brought a leather-bound notebook I'd found hidden in the back of my mother's old kitchen cabinet. It was a ledger. Page after page of loans she had taken out to pay off Mark's gambling debts and Luke's failed businesses. The final entry in her shaky hand read, "Don't let Danica know. She's the only one of us who made it out. Don't let them pull her down." The room went silent. I turned to the panel and the officers. I didn't steal the money. They did. And when they ran out of my mother's money, they tried to steal my freedom. Then, the final nail. The police brought in a woman, Mark's ex-girlfriend. She was the one in the video. She confessed that Mark had promised to pay off her debts if she wore my old parka and staged the break-in for the camera. I watched the color leave Mark's face. I watched Luke try to slide out of the room, only to be stopped by a deputy. My father sat there, a man who had spent his life fighting fires, finally realizing he had started one he couldn't put out. The charges against Danica Lel are dropped, the judge announced. And I'm recommending a full investigation into the complainants for fraud and conspiracy. I stood up, smoothed my coat, and walked past them. My father reached out to touch my arm. "Danica, wait." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked him in the eye and said, "I never took anything from this family. But today, I'm taking back my name. Don't ever use it again." 3 months later, I stood in a different church. This time, I wasn't the bride. I was walking a young trainee I'd mentored down the aisle. She had no one else. As we reached the altar, she whispered, "Thank you for showing up." It was the simplest thing. Showing up. My family couldn't do it because their pride was too heavy to carry. But me. I've learned that the family you're born into is just the starting line. The family you build. That's the finish line. There is no revenge more silent or more powerful than living a life they can no longer touch. If you enjoyed seeing Danica finally get the justice she deserved, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Have you ever had a family member try to blame you for their own mistakes? Drop your story in the comments below. I read as many as I can. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. I'm Revenge Engine, and I'll see you in the next one.